Hello and welcome. It's a good day to be on the farm. My name is Chuck and this is Calmsden, episode 6. And in the last episode we had just turned on precision farming and we were working on adjusting the pH values of our soil. Here we are finishing up some of that spreading of the lime on this field, and then we'll be moving on to doing some other field prep work using the precision farming app. So stay tuned and enjoy. So as we get turned around here and start spreading this lime, heading back technically to the south, I think, on this run here, I'm going to go ahead and cut to a time lapse while I finish liming the rest of this here as soon as I'm done checking the map to see. And it looks like we're doing a pretty good job on 2 and 3. We're just trying to get this one done as well. So let me go ahead and time lapse this and I'll be back in a second. And we're back. So as I am backing this spreader into the garage, would you call this a garage? I'm not exactly sure what to call it. It's like a carport. I don't know if I'm from Nebraska. In Nebraska we have garages, but my dad is from Arkansas, and in Arkansas they have a lot of carports instead of garages. So this reminds me more of a carport than it does of a garage. A machine shed usually has doors, so like where we park on the other side of this building, where it's actually inside enclosed with walls, I'd call that a machine shed. But this is more of a carport, I would say. But I digress. It is time to get rid of this spreader. I think we are officially not going to use it now that we are down to the precision farming app. We were already not using it because we were spreading solid fertilizer because of that little fertilizer spreader that we have already that spreads the solid pellets, does such a good job with spreading at such a wide angle, and with these fields being this big, and the cost of liquid fertilizer as well. Now, this might have been nice for herbicide, but we have been making good use of that manual weeder. And so when we use a manual weeder on the first stage growth, which is the only one that our blue and yellow weeder works on, we can usually get rid of weeds that way. But regardless, I don't think we're going to need to spread any sort of fertilizer or herbicide, hopefully anytime soon. So we're going to go ahead and sell this. It's a piece of equipment that came in the new farmer mode that we started up in. That gave you the farmyard that we've been using and all the equipment. So it's not one that I chose. And in the precision farming one, in the expansion that Giants put out, there is a specific sprayer you can get. I believe it's a John Deere sprayer that will actually do the spot spraying. So if we decide we want to go down the herbicide route again in the future, we certainly can. And we would probably, knowing that we're doing precision farming on this map, try to get the John Deere that comes with the expansion, the official one, that will do the spot spraying, because I'd like to try that out at some point in time. I don't know that this is the map we will do that on, because again, I'm liking that manual weeder that we have, but regardless, that's why we've sold the sprayer. And here, since we're down here at the store, we're going to go ahead and just pick up the tedder that we bought, I believe, in the last episode, and go ahead and bring this out to the field. We're going to be, hopefully, at the end of this episode, mowing the field over behind the cowshed as well. And then we would want to make hay out of that. So I wanted to make sure we picked up the tedder in case we got that far. Now, we have a lot of fertilizer to spread today already, so I don't know that we'll get there in this episode, but we might. So that's sort of the plan. But since I was already driving down to the shop to drop off the sprayer, it seemed like a good time to pick up the tedder, because we'll hopefully be using it today as well. And so we're going to drive the John Deere back. I'm doing the cab mode now because I'm tired of showing you guys those branches. I do love the way this map looks. It's like one of my favorite maps on Farm Sim 22 just because of the trees, especially in the fall here when the trees start turning orange like this. It's just beautiful to look at and drive around. However, it is an English map, and all the English maps have these tiny narrow roads, which when you're driving in third person, like I tend to do, puts those branches right in your field of view. So when I'm on the roads, I'm starting to get into the habit of switching to that first person view. I think that's better for you guys and better for me as well, to just not have all those branches in the way. So we're going to go ahead and just park up the tedder right here, drop it off, and then we will go find that little fertilizer spreader, I believe. But first, let's drive over here into the machine shed. And this is what I'm talking about, this being indoors and enclosed. Whoops, don't mind me that I bumped the door there. This is what I would call a machine shed because it's completely enclosed and has a door. This is the precision farming scanner. I don't know what it's called, but it's the implement you can put on the front of the tractors to scan the ground or the plants once you're at that first stage growth to see how much how they're doing basically. And I believe the explanation that was in the video that Giants released with the expansion was that this would scan the leaves or the green part of the plant and decide based on the amount of pigment in the plants, would tell you if they needed more nitrogen or not. So we did pick up the fertilizer, solid fertilizer spreader here. There's a little bit of solid fertilizer in here, but not a ton, and these fields are very red, so they're going to need a lot. So as we get going here, you'll see we're going to have to reload this thing a little bit, but let's just see how far we can get in the beginning. So we're going to again spread out. Yeah, look at how red those are. Field 2 and 3 both need a lot of fertilizer, a lot of nitrogen. So we're going to go ahead and lower this and turn it on. I don't know that we actually need this for the spreading of the nitrogen. I'm not 100% sure what the scanner, exactly what implement it goes for, but I want to make sure we have this on our mini map and that we know where to spray and where not to spray. And in addition, this front attachment You can also take your tractors into the shop, to the machine shed, or down to the store and customize them. And you can add the same sort of scanners on the mirrors of your tractor if you have one specific tractor that you use to spread the fertilizer and the lime. Now, obviously, yeah, I just ran out of fertilizer. This is going to take, that's as far as I got on the percentage I had. So again, these were very red in the field. So we're going to drive over here and fill this up, and then we will get spreading again. And obviously I don't have the narrow tires on here, but this is a first growth stage for the plants on this field. So that's why we're going to get it done today, to preserve that. And I probably should have folded the front end of this in before I drove, just so I don't break one of those off. But I opted for this particular scanner instead of putting it on the mirrors of the tractor for two reasons. Number one, if you put it on the mirrors on the front of the tractor, well, number one, it's only on that tractor, and I'm not sure which one I'm going to be spreading with all the way, since I have 3 tractors I actively use. So number one, it's more cost effective to just have one implement that we can put on the front of our tractors versus putting the mirror detectors on all 3. But number two, this you can actually use at night. It's a little more sophisticated, I want to say, or high tech than the mirror ones. The mirror ones require daylight, so they stop functioning if the sun goes down. And sometimes I'm spreading late in the day, or really early in the day. I don't know that rain or a cloudy day would probably affect it very much. It'd still be daylight out, so I think they technically would still work. But this scanner, I believe, works all the time. This kind of antenna that I've installed on the front of my tractor. So that was the other onus for doing it this way, was just trying to make sure that we got it done correctly. So that is sort of what I'm going for here, and that's why I chose to do it this way. So we're going to go ahead and spread some fertilizer on this field and kind of go from there. All right, and we are up to field 2 now, getting ready to start fertilizing here. As you saw in the time lapse there, we used a lot of fertilizer on field 3. We had to fill up 2 more times, I believe. It took almost an entire tank of fertilizer just to do the headlands around the outside and 1 more strip on the south side, which is kind of the same strip that we did the first time on the south side. So again, these fields were in desperate need of some fertilizer on the Precision Farming app, which I'm questioning a little bit, mainly because I believe I had fertilized all of these once before I planted. That way I'd only have to fertilize 1 more time. So I believe these fields were at a 50% fertilization before I turned on the Precision Farming expansion. So that bugs me a little bit, because we wasted money, if that's what happened, to spread fertilizer on them earlier, and then here we're still spreading thousands of dollars of fertilizer onto the field. So obviously I would recommend turning on the Precision Farming at the beginning of a game, not in the middle like I did here. But again, we're just testing things out, and as I drive around, there's my weeder I was talking about earlier, my yellow and blue weeder sitting on that tractor. I apparently left that sitting out here in the field. But anyway, so I would recommend starting a new map or a new game with your Precision Farming, rather than doing what I'm doing here, which is turning it on mid-game. But I was enjoying this Calmsden series quite a bit, and I wanted to try it out. So this was sort of where I tested Precision Farming at first. Depending on when you're watching this video, my Erlengrot series just posted episode 21 this morning, and I believe episode 5 of the Riverview Farm map will be going out tomorrow, if I remember right on the schedule. So I did take, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks off from Calmsden, because I kind of doubled down on Erlengrot, went to 3 days a week for producing that series. And then started a new map on Riverview, starting over with the Precision Farming on that fresh, which is what I'm recommending here. But the first time I had actually played with Precision Farming was right here on Calmsden, which you are witnessing now. Through the magic of YouTube, this is out of order chronologically. So I recorded this footage on the Calmsden farm almost a month ago. IRL, but I'm obviously producing the videos at a different rate, and I kind of got focused on some of those other series a little bit more, pushing for 3 days a week on Erlengrot, because that is my longest running series, and I just kind of wanted to get that further along, and then starting the new series on Riverview, where I wanted to do more of the animal work. So again, but this is actually the first time I was spreading fertilizer in the Precision Farming app, was when I recorded this footage earlier, to just sort of play around with it and see. So I did use this to kind of learn what to do and not to do on Precision Farming. And so you're going to see some of that here in the Calmsden series as I release these videos as well. And again, the Calmsden isn't on a release schedule like the other 2 series are, and here I'm just kind of trying to figure out what like this Calmsden series has in general just been sort of where I practice editing things, and I practice using different tools I have available. So I've messed around with more time lapses, I've added a lot more music, fading things in and out, doing a lot more cuts and edits and things like that in the Calmsden series in general. And that's because I'm just trying to learn what I can and cannot do with the equipment that I have for the main series that I'm running. So this obviously is not one of those main series, but it is one that I've got footage recorded for, and I do enjoy. Those trees that I'm always talking about. And look, I'm just breaking this expensive precision equipment, leaving it on the front of the tractor and banging it into the walls and the trees. So decided to fold it up there just to make it a little easier to drive on the way back to the farm to again get, I think this will be the 4th load of fertilizer we're loading in here. So I spend in this episode, I spend thousands and thousands of dollars on fertilizer. So probably we'll try to watch it here because it's not going to be time lapsed since I'm talking, and see how much it actually costs to fill it. But I think it's somewhere around $3,000 to $4,000 every time I'm loading up on fertilizer. It's costing me that $3,000 to $4,000. So being the 4th time, I mean, we're at least at 12,000, maybe 16,000 in fertilizer here after this next one. But here we can watch as we fill this up to see how close we are. And again, that's just because the fields we're claiming to be very low on nitrogen, which is why we're adding so much solid fertilizer here. And while that's filling, we're going to switch over here and get this tractor that we forgot off of the field. This is, I believe, our Kloss tractor, but and our weeder. And this is that manual weeder I was talking about that I enjoy using. I hate paying for herbicide. It is so expensive that if you're going to do a large farm like this, I would much rather prefer. I would like to use the manual weeder, which is just a one-time investment, than have to have a sprayer and then continually invest in that herbicide over and over and over again. So again, that's sort of my thought process. I don't know if everybody agrees with me or doesn't agree with me. On smaller fields, the spray is kind of nice because it goes really quick. But just the amount of spray of herbicide you'd have to spread on these fields, or spray on these fields, I just think the manual weeder is the way to go. So, and this is the widest one that's available in the base game without downloading any sort of mod or app for this. And I can't remember, am I trying to cut under here with this? I think this weeder is a little too tall. Oh, yep. Not a good day for me driving equipment around the farm. I've been making all sorts of mistakes, trying to find ways to fit this equipment in. Oh, I'm trying to back it in too. Look, I'm determined to not have to drive all the way around the yard like this. But regardless, that's why I prefer the manual weeder. So that's why I've been using it, and this is the largest one available. So it's the one I've used in a couple of different series at this point. Now the only downside of this one is it only does small weeds. And sometimes, depending on how many fields you've got going or what you're doing, you might miss that and then accidentally get medium weeds or large weeds on a field, in which case this weeder would then be ineffective. So it's a good idea to maybe have the sprayer available if you're doing multiple fields at the same time, in case you make that mistake. Otherwise, you're going to have to rent one or get a different type of weeder for that. But again, I'm doing one field at a time on this series, and I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on it, so that's why I've been trying to focus on just using that manual weeder. Anyway, we're back into the John Deere with the fertilizer spreader. And because we were messing around with that weeder, we missed the point where I would have checked to see how much we spent on that fertilizer. So I'll be watching for it to see if I did check. And again, I recorded this footage like a month ago, so I can't remember off the top of my head if the little whoopsie with the fence there, if I paused and checked the field data at the end of the episode or not. Hopefully I did, but if not, oh well. When we do check that data for harvest, it will tell us how much we spent on fertilizer per field, which is probably more helpful than just how much I spent on fertilizer in this episode, which is kind of arbitrary. But regardless, it is expensive this first time around to go from red on the nitrogen level up to green or kind of yellow-green like we have been. As we harvest, again, the different crops take different levels of nitrogen out of the soil. So the next time it should be cheaper. And then depending on what crops we planted, one field might need more nitrogen than the other. And I haven't honestly learned which crops take more nitrogen out of the soil and which ones don't. But I do know farmers rotate their crops for that reason, because some crops are harder on the soil than others, and some crops rejuvenate the soil. That's why farmers here in Nebraska rotate soybeans and corn a lot of the time. They'll have one field soybeans and another one corn, or they'll do all soybeans one year and all corn the next year, depending on the size of farm they run or the amount of fields that they manage, because you use a lot of the same equipment, except for headers on your harvester are different, obviously. But so that's just something, for us to keep in mind, or to keep an eye on here. But like I said, we're kind of just, this is the series where I was playing around with precision farming before I started a series with it. I wanted to at least kind of see how it worked and try out some of the equipment, and that's also why I bought the front attachment on this one, in addition to just having the 3 different tractors and it making more sense economically to kind of spread it out that way. I wanted to kind of see how the equipment worked in my other series that I'm using precision farming on, which is Riverview. I don't believe I've bought this front attachment, at least I haven't yet. And honestly, I don't remember if I have went down to the shop and added the mirror, the scanners on the mirrors. I don't think that I have done that either, and I've still been able to see the nitrogen levels of the fields, and and the pH balance of the fields when, or the pH levels of the field. I'm trying to balance that when I'm spreading lime. So maybe this isn't even what the scanner is for. To be honest, it might just be for the sprayer. And in this series, I don't know if I've showed it yet because, again, my memory is going, but I had done the attachment on the rear of the tractor where you take the samples of the fields, and I can't remember if that was in episode 5 or not. But I know that I do that here in the future on another field that I purchase and use. But in the Riverview episodes, it just seemed easier just to purchase the soil data rather than do the 20 plus soil samples and analyzing those. And that's, again, another thing I don't know is, do you have to do those soil samples every year throughout the harvests to get an accurate reading of where you're at? Or since you've sampled the soil already and you know where you're going from, then you can calculate based on the nitrogen that you have added to the fields and the pH that you've added to the fields using the lime, to know approximately where they should be at. Whether they're there or not, I don't know, but that's an interesting part of this as well, is trying to figure out exactly how many times you need to sample the soil, and whether or not you just want to send that off to a lab and hire someone to do it, or if you want to use that soil sampler to take those samples yourself every time. And I think that even goes into your environmental score for your fields. I think you get 10 or 15 points for doing soil samples, and so I don't know if those, you always get that if you do the soil samples yourself, or if you have to do the soil samples every year to get that high environmental score, which I think would be a little redundant. But maybe that's how it works. I mean, lots of things can happen over the course of the year that may affect things like your nitrogen levels and your pH levels. So again, precision farming is a fun new sort of addition to the game. But there's a lot of questions that I haven't even answered yet. So I wanted to kind of learn a little bit more about it before I produced any videos that talked about it. Mainly because I didn't have the slightest clue how it worked when I started doing all this. I was just playing around with the equipment, and this map, Calmsden, is the one I kind of decided to do that on. So anyway, here we are back in the machine shed, as I'm calling it, parking up and dropping off the scanner on the front, and then we'll drop off this fertilizer spreader as well. And I appreciate you guys for watching this video. If you did like it, give it that thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and go ahead and ring that bell if you want to get alerts when I release new videos. I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode. Have a good night.